A serial killer that believed he was a vampire and drank the blood of his victims? Yeah, we're talking about Richard Chase, as in the vampire of Sacramento, because I'm in Sacramento right now, so why the fuck not? Chase was born on May 23rd of 1950 to a very abusive family, and it was apparent from a very young age that he had a bad mental illness, but his parents didn't care. They still abused him and his sister. Chase had what we call the MacDonald triad, which are 3 predecessors to sociopathic tendencies, which is bedwetting, fire starting, and killing small animals. At the age of 18, he left his parents' house and began experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs, which we all know that's great for people with a mental illness. Things got bad really fast for Richard Chase. His mental illness evolved and he began having paranoid hallucinations, one of which was that he was a walking corpse and needed immediate vitamin C to help him stay moving, and he would take an orange and press it into his head, thinking that his brain would absorb the vitamin C immediately. I don't know. The other was that his cranial bones were actually breaking apart and moving around like jigsaw puzzle pieces, and he actually shaved his head to keep track of them to make sure that they didn't go anywhere. His fascination with blood was a little much, and this is actually the blender bottle that he would put animal intestines in and blend it up with soda and drink it. In 1975, he was institutionalized because he tried injecting rabbit blood into his veins and got really, really sick. He was released way too early, but in the institution, they called him Dracula, the staff did, because of his fascination with blood, and they would taunt him and mock him about it. In August of 1977, after he was released from the institution, Richard was pulled over for being covered in blood and having a liver in a bucket in the bed of his truck. When the cop realized that it was just cow blood, he was like, oh no, it's all good. Just go on home. What? And then on December 29th of 1977, Chase makes his first kill. It was 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin. Chase shot him 3 times in the chest while he was helping his wife bring in groceries. But it just gets worse from here. At this point, Chase was like, great, killing, I love this, I'm gonna do it again. And his delusions of being a vampire were just fully formed. And he stumbled upon a house with an unlocked door. Part 2 is up right away. Richard Chase fully believed he was a vampire. And after, in December of 1977, he killed 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin, things got really, really bad. The home of the pregnant Teresa Wallen was unlocked, and Richard Chase stumbled upon it. In his brain, as a vampire, he believed that the unlocked door was his invitation to enter. A plus Z equals 7? Anyways, he shot her 3 times, like he did with Ambrose Griffin, and then he stabbed her multiple times with a butcher knife, pulled out her organs, and drank her blood with a yogurt cup. And this isn't even as bad as his murders get. Evelyn Moroth was home with her 6-year-old son Jason, her 22-month-old nephew that she was babysitting, David Ferrara, and a friend/neighbor, Dan Meredith. Richard Chase found their door unlocked, and they were all murdered. Brutally. Dan was found in the hallway with a gunshot wound to his head. His car keys were also taken. Evelyn and Jason were found in Evelyn's bedroom. Jason was shot twice in the head. Evelyn was partially cannibalized. He ripped out some of her organs, some parts of her were missing. There was a failed attempt to remove one of her eyes, and he did some unthinkable things to her body afterwards, and also drank her blood. However, the young David Ferrara was still missing. A neighbor saw Richard Chase speed away in Dan Meredith's car and alerted authorities. They were able to trace his fingerprints and Evelyn's blood back to him. When police entered his apartment, they found containers of human brains in his fridge. And a few months later, the decapitated body of David Ferrara was found behind a church in a box. Chase pled insanity, and of course it wasn't granted. He was sentenced to death via gas chamber, which apparently was still a thing in the 70s. Never should have been a thing to begin with. Sentenced to death. No one in the prison he was at liked him. The inmates, that is. And they would taunt him and bully him and tell him to kill himself, and He did. He overdosed on the anxiety medicine that the nurse's office at the prison supplied him with. Yeah, that's a lot. A controversial question for you guys. Do you think Chase could have been helped if someone had just recognized the struggle he was having mentally? I mean, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and he slipped through the cracks of the system multiple times. What do you guys think? Debate it in the comments.
16-year-old Rochelle Waterman didn't like her life, so she told her 25-year-old boyfriend to murder her mother. On November 14, 2004, an Alaska trooper got a call of a burning car with possible human remains. When the trooper got to the scene, the car was still smoldering and had human remains in the back seat. They discovered that the car hadn't crashed but had deliberately been set on fire. That same night, a call came in. A local man named Doc Waterman reported that his wife Lori was missing. Her Chrysler minivan was also gone. The burning vehicle was a Chrysler minivan, and dental records confirmed that the victim was Lori Waterman. The weekend that Lori was killed, Doc had been on a business trip, and their 16-year-old daughter, Rochelle, had been in Anchorage for a volleyball tournament. Their son, Jeffrey, had been in college on the mainland. When Doc and Rochelle arrived home, they realized that Lori was gone. There was a bottle of wine that had been left out, but Lori wasn't a drinker. Detectives found the tip of a rubber glove and fibers from a synthetic rope in the bedroom and footprints on a windowsill, all evidence that someone had broken into the house. Doc was ruled out as a suspect, and then the focus moved to Rochelle. Rochelle was dating 25-year-old Brian Riddell. The two were questioned along with a mutual friend, Jason Arendt. Rochelle and Brian made up an alibi, but Jason finally cracked and admitted that Brian was the murderer and did it because Rochelle was being abused by Lori. Brian admitted to killing Lori, but said that both him and Jason were involved and that they did it because they believed they were saving Rochelle, that she had asked them to murder her mother. The two men broke into Lori's home, tied her up, forced her to drink wine to intoxicate her to make it look like she'd been in a car accident, and put her in the backseat of her van. They drove her to an isolated spot, and Brian tried to snap her neck, but that didn't work, so he strangled her. They drove to another remote area and set her car on fire. Brian was arrested in 2004 and admitted that Rochelle had planned the attack. Rochelle eventually confessed, admitting the abuse was a lie. Brian pled guilty and received 99 years. Jason also pled guilty and received 50 years. Rochelle, after being tried twice, was convicted of criminally negligent homicide and was sentenced to only 3 years. She has since been released and has moved out of Alaska.
In case you've never seen him before, this is Austin Haroff. Austin was a seemingly normal boy of age 19 years old in 2016, pictured here with his mother, when he chose to take the lives of 59-year-old John Stevens and 53-year-old Michelle Mishcon, pictured here. After his family reported a litany of strange behavior on a night out to dinner, Austin decided to take off, where he would then find John and Michelle in their garage. Trigger warning, up next are a few crime scene photos. Pictured here is the sandal of Michelle Mishcon. The next photo is of the driveway where Austin will be found by police eating the face of John Stevens after he murdered him. Austin had just brutally beaten Michelle and John to death and refused to stop eating John's face after the police had tasered him multiple times and a police dog even bit him. His trial was delayed in 2020.
On October 26th of this year, 22-year-old Abigail Saldana was shot and killed by a man who was stalking, threatening, and harassing her. Abigail was a dancer at a club called Rick's Cabaret in Fort Worth, Texas. In the weeks leading up to her murder, Abigail told management and her friends that she was being harassed by a man who called himself Stan and who was a regular customer at her job. She was scared for her safety. She made a couple of posts on her Instagram, with one of them stating that Stan was irritated with how much money he had given her. Then a week before her murder, she made another Instagram post where she found and showed that a GPS tracker had been placed on her car, likely by Stan. Here's a short clip of that video.
My car like this. This is why you have to be careful. I don't really know what to do moving forward with this, but this definitely looks like a tracker to me.
According to Abigail's mom, she did report this to the police. On October 26 at around 9 p.m., someone called the police to report witnessing a major car crash off of an exit ramp near Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, which is near Rick's Cabaret. When police arrived, they found Abigail dead inside of her car, having been shot multiple times in the torso. 3 shell casings and broken glass were found not far from her car. Authorities talked to the manager at Rick's Cabaret, who told them that Abigail had been stalked and harassed by a man named Stan, and showed them her Instagram posts. This led them to 54-year-old Stanley Zeliga, who was obsessed with Abigail. In the week leading up to her murder, Stanley made a bunch of posts on Instagram about her. Like in this one, saying that he envisioned a future with her, but at the same time, he was trying to blackmail her for her SW work. Upon searching license plate reader records, authorities found that Stanley's red 2015 Ford F-150 pickup truck had been by Abigail's home at least 5 times over a 12-day period. Footage from a traffic camera near her apartment showed Stanley's truck trailing her car and placed him in close proximity to hers at the time of the shooting. A day later, a SWAT team entered Stanley's home in Irving, Texas after he refused to come out and found him on his balcony with several self-inflicted cuts. He was arrested and is facing a murder charge. Stanley is currently being held in the Tarrant County Jail on a $250,000 bond. Abigail was young and had her whole life ahead of her. She's leaving behind a 5-year-old son.